Ethos of Silence.
A veteran podcast aims to amplify the voices of veterans, creating a safe space for authentic conversations about their experiences, challenges, and triumphs. We seek to break the stigma surrounding mental health and foster community support, resilience, and understanding. Through storytelling, expert insights, and candid discussions, we strive to inspire healing, promote awareness, and empower veterans on their journeys.
Welcome. And we're back. I got Chuck back with me again today.
Hello, everybody.
So you just mentioned it, Chuck. The what's your take on the? Nah, I'm not going to talk about the war. You're still involved in the military and everything else. Your opinion might get a little sketchy there.
It's an operation. That's what they say.
Yeah, we'll talk about operational stuff once you're not in anymore. So let me read your quote, right?
Okay.
You a Dragon Ball Z fan?
Absolutely.
Who's your favorite character?
Vegeta.
Oh. That's the Marine answer if there is.
It's Vegeta and Majin Buu.
And Majin Buu, huh?
Yeah.
One of the most misunderstood characters in Dragon Ball Z is Vegeta. People think his pride is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
All his ego makes him arrogant, and his confidence is a pure delusion. But Vegeta shows us something that generationally, that this generation desperately needs to hear. Ego is not necessarily the enemy, but a weak ego is. Vegeta's pride is not about believing that he is better than everyone else, but it's about holding himself to a standard so high that most people would crumble under the weight of the pressure. It's about refusing to stagnate, refusing to settle, refusing to become anything less than the warrior he knows he can be. Right?
I like that.
That's the problem with today. We live in a generation that fears ego, a generation that avoids pride, a generation that's taught to be smart, quiet, humble, and realistic. When you put those limitations on yourself, that's exactly what you're doing. You're limiting your upside. People walk around with no standards, no discipline, no explanation for their actions, let alone for themselves. Simply because they're scared of being arrogant. I tell you what, Marines definitely do not have that problem. But Vegeta teaches us the opposite. You need ego. You need pride. But not the kind that looks down on others, or the kind that you look in the mirror and say, I will not accept, I'm not going to accept mediocrity today. What do you think? What jumps out at you after reading just that little bit, and I'll pick it up some more.
I'm gonna be honest with you. You always know where to hit the nail on the head. Some stuff that I've struggled with recently is coworkers. Not in my particular place. I actually got some pretty decent coworkers, but I ran into situations where on the civilian side, it seems like people are comfortable with mediocrity, and when you challenge people who are comfortable, it's almost like in today's society, you're the problem because you dare to ask more of somebody.
Yeah,
that should ask more of themselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, so there's something beautiful about making mistakes and moving on. It's okay to let people see you make a mistake. Just don't let them see you quit. Right. So like the mediocrity, it's okay to go to somebody and realize that you ask them something and it's not going to happen, and I consider that a mistake. I mistake in you for being, more caring about your job, more knowledgeable about your job. You've been here 30 years. I assumed you'd understand how this works. That's my mistake. Right. But A mistake repeated more than once is a decision. If I go back to that same person with that same question, I have made that decision to make that person feel however they feel, or to, waste my time and go in that direction. A mistake repeated more than twice is a habit, right? A mistake repeated more than 3 times, that just shows your character, right? At that point, that is a character flaw. It's not a mistake anymore. Mistakes happen. We're all human. A mistake can be repeated. It isn't a mistake anymore. It's part of who you really are. So like the mediocrity, if that's just who they are. That's what they're comfortable with. They don't want to push outside of their bubble.
Yeah.
Everybody's afraid of change. We're afraid of changing the role of what we've got going on, messing up everything, right? But if there's one thing we learn from Vegeta, it's always pushing through to the next level. There's another level. There's another skill of mastery beyond what we're messing with to get to that next level.
I definitely think one of the reasons why I gravitate towards Vegeta so much is when he finds out that there's somebody else stronger than him or better than him, that doesn't discourage him. I think if anything else, like, it motivates him more. And I feel like sometimes I wish some of the people I come across, co-workers and things of that nature, would seek out help in the sense of like making themselves better.
That's exactly it, man. You're trying to raise the bar for everybody. I mean, we've talked about it before. It's very, very simple. Things take time to evolve. And it's as simple as changing oil on your new truck. Whenever you go out there, you change oil in your new truck. It takes you a little while to find out where the oil filter was underneath, what tools you need, everything else. And then we've learned in the military, we from doing maintenance on aircraft, so much stuff, everything's kitted. So I've got a little kit that I take out there that's got everything I'm ever going to need and has the exact tools I need. And that's the kit to go and do that one little job. And now something that took me X amount of time the first time now takes me a third of that amount of time because I've got all the tools. I know the exact extension I need and everything else I need to get in there and get the job done, right? And whenever people repeat the same things over and over again and they're not getting any better, not getting any faster, and they're just okay with just dragging through the day, or they're okay with accepting the status quo of what's going on instead of, one of the things we love about Vegeta is his ego pushes him to evolve. His pride forces him to train harder, train sharper, and rise stronger. That it just keeps, he keeps going, when everything tells him to quit. And that's his secret. Ego is toxic. Ego can be toxic when it's empty. But when ego becomes unstoppable, when it's backed by pure action, right? Mm-hmm. Vegeta doesn't claim he's the greatest, but he works so hard every single day to be worthy of that claim. Every single day. And if you can muster that type of motivation, you're unstoppable. He reminds us that confidence without work is an illusion, and truth is Vegeta's the blueprint. his standards, his pride, and his level of refusal to drop below, to go backwards. Let your ego push you. Let your pride guide you. Become the world.
I think if you compare the two, Goku and Vegeta, Goku's the definition of nepotism. Think about it. Think about it. Every time he gets a power up or a level up or something, it's always because somebody like helps him. Where like you said, Vegeta just quote the young kids how they say he gets it out the mud. He does it by himself. He spends hours and hours training, sacrifices everything else.
But a lot can be learned, and that's the same as, you feel the power, but you didn't do the stuff to earn the power that's in the body. Whenever we're talking about the tournaments and they take their body, and then all of a sudden, we've got this powerful body, but we don't understand how to use it because we didn't build that power. So in a way, yes. But also from looking at it, you're like, wow, that's a very good thing. If there's somebody that has the blueprint for me and it's there, is it really a shortcut to ask and learn from them? It is. And taking that shortcut is a calculated shortcut that's worth taking because it gets you to that next level so you can push even harder. You know what I mean? Like, There's a difference between the high school coaches I had just force feeding us creatine and having us go to the gym and do the same 6 lifts to play football, and then having an idea of how weights work and everything else, and working out with my son, and then him being on a powerlifting team and all the other different stuff, and getting him on the right nutrition to actually be competitive at like a state level with what he's doing. It's two completely different things, to actually focus on something and narrow it down.
So let me ask you this. So we're talking about ego and knowledge and all that stuff. When have you ever seen a situation where having too much ego could be a bad thing? You know what I mean? Like me personally, I have been told that I wear it on my face, and sometimes I guess when somebody says something really stupid, and I'll take an example. I had a manager, at a previous company. He once told me, Charles, you make me feel stupid every time I talk. And I said, I don't. That's not my intent. But when you say stupid things, I can't help but, look the way I look. And it wasn't an ego thing. It was more like I can't believe you kind of thing. You know what I mean? I feel like sometimes people are too worried about their feelings being hurt instead of recognizing where they're deficient. You're mad at my reaction instead of what caused that reaction. So I feel like sometimes, maybe I'm wrong. I'm missing it here, but I think military service members, we're so used to a culture that's blunt and direct. I don't know how many times. Go ahead.
Because beating around the bush doesn't get anybody anywhere. We have no time for. Between build-ups to deploy again, I don't have time to play around with you and let you try and learn or figure out your own little pattern of how to do it. Like, I can show you multiple tools. So this is one of my favorite quotes I've came across, right? Because I talk about the hammer and the nail all the time. But there was a quote, and it said, you will be an extremely ineffective leader if the only tool in your leadership toolbox is a hammer. Right? If we went out there to go fix the aircraft and the only thing we had was a hammer, that aircraft is it's going to have a hard time flying. Right? And the same thing goes with leadership. Like, you have to be able to approach situations are situational, and that's one thing that we say, but you have to approach everything differently, because of different people's height and weight, different diets are what you've got to do, their body makeup, their genetics, different stuff like that, for them to get within height and weight standards. There's just, each problem has its own unique blend of what's going on. So it's very difficult to narrow any of those things down, to pin anything down. But personally, my ego has probably got me, I mean, it'll constantly get me in pickles. Yeah, peanut gallery over here.
I heard that.
Peanut gallery sound effects. But a lot of that comes off from being a Marine. Like I've got such a high standard of myself that I'm not going to lower myself to deal with or even listen to the criticism coming from somewhere. So it might be a blinding ego. At the end of the day, that's who I am. You're gonna have to deal with it. You're gonna have to move along. I am definitely trying to figure out how that works with raising a teenage daughter. So I definitely feel bad for you with two of them.
My daughter, speaking of, I spoke to my daughter today, and she said, Dad, with me and my sister, you take like a gentler tone, but with everyone else, you're like, like really direct and military, like. And I'm like, why is it such a bad thing nowadays? It seems like, my kid's not doing anything wrong. She's generally asking, questions because she's getting to that age, and she says like, she has teachers, they talk a certain way, and she has another parent that talks another way. But she says when it comes to me and the way she sees me interacting with other adults, her aunts, her uncles, so on and so forth, I can have a very authoritative tone. And I said, it's not authoritative. It's just very matter of fact. I'm a very direct person. I don't have time for the long-winded conversations. Like you said, to beat around the bush.
No, I'm not interested in a conversation about your feelings. We're speaking facts here, and you're telling me you're trying to quote me that you understand where I'm coming from and you're good old boys and all this other different stuff. Dude, I don't care. I've got X, Y, and Z is the problem. I'm trying to solve it. I don't have time to hear about the fact that, if you want some more personal information from me, for you to be able to give me the answer, sure. But I shouldn't have had to give you that personal information to begin with, much less, what's going on, So, like, trying to sign Travis up for all the benefits and everything else and all these college packages and everything else, and that to prevent fraud, the government wants all these other different things, as if I haven't worked for the government for 10 years and, I don't have a DD-214 that shows everything. And, you need to prove you're a resident in Louisiana. Well, I've been paying taxes here. What more proof do you need, And matter of fact, that's one of the forms I got to go get. But more than just get them a copy of my tax return for the state, I've got to go have it actually stamped by the state, So I had to go up to the state building, and then of all places, I go up there to the state's IRS, the state revenue stuff, and they tell me that they're going to send it to me in the mail. It's like, I could have just paid you online for you to send it to me in the mail. Why I got to come in person for this? It's just it, and the level of retardedness you got to jump through to just take care of things that should be simple and routine. It's annoying. It's part of life, dealing with other people and all the other different stuff. But I have a short fuse when dealing with that. I don't like people who are incompetent at their job, and then I ask them a question and they read back the statement on the piece of paper like I can't read. Like, no, I can read. I want you to interpret what that says, because I don't want to come back up here with something and it not be what I need. It's like I don't think it's that big of a question, I guess. I must just have a big dick growing out of my forehead and you're distracted when I ask it or something. I don't know.
No, I think what it is, when you're in the military, you're trained to think a certain kind of way. Everyone in the military, and I think the longer you're in, the more it becomes like a part of who you are, because when I'm sitting in meetings and I'm listening to the smoking and joking, and I'm not saying that we don't do that in the military, of course. We throw a couple jabs and a couple laughs, and a couple jokes and stuff like that. But it almost seems like nowadays, especially as someone stepping into the civilian workforce, there's almost like a whole other lingo.
Chuck, you could walk out tomorrow and they just hire two people to do what you were doing, and the company would lose a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, they'd hire two people to replace you because of the amount of workload you pull, you know? But whenever you do stuff like that, they realize that they can get a bigger bonus because, Laux is working the day, so we can work extra shorthanded, and he won't complain about it because it's just a job. It's not that hard. I think this all just circles right back to Vegeta's motto. The best version of yourself is still ahead. Everything you've been through is preparation. You're not declining. You're not being redefined. Your best chapter has not even begun yet. You haven't even sit down and written it. It hasn't been written. The relationship you have with yourself is the most complicated one because there's no option to walk away. You must find a way to forgive yourself through any of your mistakes, improve yourself through any of your flaws, and love yourself despite your history. Because no matter what, no matter how embarrassing, ashamed, or unhappy you are, it won't change the person that's looking back at you in the mirror. Listen closely. You want motivation? Fine. Here's the truth. Nobody has the guts to tell you. You're not tired. You're undisciplined. Every time you skip the work, every time you choose comfort, every time you tell yourself tomorrow, I'll start tomorrow, you create a weaker version of yourself. And I won't let you keep doing it. You want to change? Do it. Train, even when your body hurts. Work, even when you're tired. Show up when everyone else hides. That's what we do. We don't wait for motivation, we create it. We stand up, clench our fist, and take the next step. Because the warrior you pretend to be, and that's it. I mean, you become that person. And of that, there's 3 lessons. Pride is power, hard work beats talent, and evolve, don't be stubborn. Right? So it comes down to, everybody who's making the same mistakes over and over again. They're not evolving. They're being stubborn. They're being stuck in their ways. I know we would rather drive the old truck that we know exactly where to change everything out and everything else. Evolve, man. If you don't pick up a phone and pick up the computer and everything else and know how to work Excel or know how to do this, if you don't know how to work the AI that's coming out to be able to figure out and the internet and QR codes and all this other different stuff, like if you don't know how to do that, then you're going to be a figment of the past and you're going to be sitting back and watching everything else move on without you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Hard work beats talent, but I mean we're talented people. We're getting up there in age a little bit, so work smarter, not harder. You're right, but hard work beats talent, and I mean even these young cats, I can work circles around them, and my body's falling apart, and I know my body's falling apart because it is nowhere near as good as it once was. But I tell you what, it's as good once as it ever was. Right?
Ooh, I love that song.
And pride is power. Right? Whenever I look down on, like, I don't know, a public servant or any of these other different people who I go in and they tell me something stupid, like a voter registration or all this other different shit. You know, it's like the main thing is I'm reaching into the negative area of pride of, like, you know, I serve my country. I'm a Marine. You need to stand up and salute me or something stupid like that is kind of what's going through my head. You know, like, you've never had an actual hard thing happen in your life, and you're over here telling me, you know, and handing me a piece of paper, and I ask you a question about it, and you point at the piece of paper. It's like, okay, all right. Yeah. But I mean, that's the same stuff with, so some more stuff for my son. They wanted basically a bunch of documents and whatnot, you know, and it's like, it'd have been easier if I brought them to him all digital so he can just attach them to what it is. But you know what? He wants every page of it. I'm bringing him, like, I decided to print out the things that were going to be the most pages. There's like 600 pages that he's got to scan in and send to the government now. In this binder I made, and he's got to do every last one of them, and I'm not bringing anything that gives him an option not to, because he wanted to be an asshole. Like, two can play this game, and I guarantee you I'm way better at it than you, buddy.
That is very good. So let me ask you this now. I had something here. I realized recently I've been saying that, like, I need to get back in shape, back in the gym. I'm out of shape, I'm out of this, I'm out of that.
Yeah.
And I was informed recently that I'm not as out of shape as I think I am. I'm not as, I guess, weak as I think I am when compared to maybe others in my age range or peers group.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues that we have as military service members, you know, at one point our bodies were, you know, they were weapons. You know,
We now have a moment of silent prayer for those still in the battle, for our departed comrades, for those missing in action, and for those held as prisoners of war.